my journey began into life in 1960. I grew up in a Catholic family, working class mum and dad from Scotland Road, and I used to go to church on a Sunday out of a sense of duty, and also if I didn't, I'd probably get a hiding off my father. I didn't go to church. So I grew up a Catholic, went to a Catholic school, did really well at school, secondary modern school that was. I always wanted to pass the 11 plus and go to his school, De La Salle, but missed out on it. But whilst at secondary modern school, it was a mixed bag for me, in the sense that I experienced lots of bullying, and if anyone's ever experienced that, it's not a very pleasant experience. So school for me was difficult as well as interesting, because I loved information, I loved getting taught stuff, and I was one of the best kids in my class at school in terms of doing well. But by the time I was 16, I couldn't wait to leave because of the difficulty with coping with the bullying, right? And then my dad instilled in me a desire to get a job and a trade. So for 12 months, I used to go every day, 5 days a week, to the career centre to try and look for a trade and a job. And I eventually got a job as an apprentice aerospace engineer at Lucas Aerospace. Made me, my mum and dad, very proud that I got such a great job, if you like. And I served me time. And one of the first memories for me working at Lucas was it was a totally new world for me. I was a naive young boy, but I had a curiosity, I remember. I used to ask a lot of questions, because anyone older than me that I was working with had lived life and were wiser than what I was, and they knew about life. And I'd be asking questions like, what's it like to have a drink? What's it like to get on an aeroplane? What's it like to go to another country? So from an early age, I had a curiosity about life. And I suppose as I reflected upon my life, really what it is I wanted to know, is there a meaning to life? Does life have meaning? Is there a purpose? And later on in life, I found out that there is. And how I got to that point, I'm going to get to in a moment. But anyway, my first years were, I got a job as an engineer. And then when I was 20, there's crossroads in each of our lives as we go along. You say, well, I took that turn, and I suppose you might call it a sliding door moment, when I was meant to go on a holiday with a couple of pals of mine who I played football with. And the factory closed for 2 weeks, and I'd booked 2 weeks, so I had a month off with these guys. I was supposed to go to Ibiza. I was 20 years of age. I fancied doing the party bit in Ibiza with my mates. And one of them met a girl, right? And because he met a girl, he said, I'm not going. I've got a girlfriend now. And because he didn't go, the other two guys said, well, I'm not going. So that left me on my Todd. So I backpacked around Europe for a month on my own. And it was one of the best experiences I ever had. In fact, I went on holiday with yourself, not soon after. When was that, in 81? Something like that, France?
Earlier, 78.
Oh, 78. Yeah, 78. So Jenna and I have known each other since we were 17, and we've been on holiday, and we've been known each other a long time. We've been very good friends. So anyway, I goes on holiday. I did the backpacking experience gave me the confidence to think, I can do the travel bit, and I've loved the idea. I've had a sense of adventure and travel in me throughout my whole life, and God's blessed me with opportunities to travel all over the world, and go to some of the remotest parts of West Africa, for example, as a filmmaker. So anyway, the other big thing, part of my growing up, was following Liverpool football team. Right. From when I was 8, right through till kind of 30, and I can honestly say that that experience of standing on the Kop, those who have stood on the Kop might agree with me in this, it was one of the most euphoric, and I suppose I'd describe it as like a spiritual experience, you know, to kind of scream and shout with joy when your team, when, you know, Liverpool scored a goal, especially in a European night, where you'd just be elation, and there was nothing in life that I could compare that moment to, if you like. Plus, I worshipped my footy team, okay? I wept in Wembley when we lost to the FA Cup in 1976. But I can honestly say, Liverpool was a big part of my life as a young man, and I worshipped my team. Obviously, since then I've realised I was worshipping the wrong thing. Do you get me? Yeah. But there I was as a young man following my football team. And then, yeah, well, relationships. So when I was about 20, that's when my kind of relationships with women began. And usually they'd last 2 or 3 years, and then it would end. And then, because of my difficulty in growing up in the dynamics within my family, my dad was, he was a lovely man, but we struggled, me and him, to have a relationship. And throughout my life, I didn't get any endorsements of him. Never said I loved you, okay? Which I found out that lots of men like me shared the same thing. And it's, I'm blessed at the moment because God's blessed me with a 2-year-old daughter. I'm nearly 66. And she's not going to experience what I experienced, in the sense of that distance, if you like, between me and my father and me and my daughter, because it's vitally important, I believe, to show affection and love to your kids. But my dad was old-fashioned, and, you know, it was difficult for me growing up with my father because at times you could be like a bit of a tyrant, you know, and that kind of affected me as a kid growing up. But thankfully, later on in life, you know, things changed, and, you know, we loved each other. We were able to tell each other we loved each other, and, you know, God stepped in there, I believe, to kind of, you know, to heal stuff from the past. So anyway, football, yeah, so I followed the Liverpool football team throughout my life. That was a big deal. And relationships, yeah. I always wanted to settle down and get married. And eventually I did, when I was 40. Before I jump to that, let me just say, so Liverpool Football Club, okay. Hillsborough, 29th of April, is that right, Kev? 15th of April. So I'm able now to look back on my life and see where I believe 100% now, where God's gone, no, you're not going to die now. And this was one of them. Okay, goes the match as normal, really excited. Semi-final of the FA Cup, Liverpool playing Notts Forest, going with a mate and his 2 mates, travels over to Sheffield. Lovely day out, sun cracking the flags. First experience of Sheffield, and I'm walking to the match. Have you been to Sheffield? It's like that. And you're up and down hills, and I'm like, wow, fancy living here. People must have, my first impressions of Sheffield is people must have legs like, thighs like tree trunks, because it's so steep. So anyway, we get to the match, and I'm queuing up getting in, and for about 30 minutes, I just noticed that where I was standing was getting more and more filled up with space of people, and we weren't getting in, right? And I thought, something's not right here, what's going on? So I was crushed going in, and if you've seen any of the pictures of what happened, it was just bedlam outside. And then eventually they opened the gates. Now normally, I'd be stood behind the goal, okay? Because that's, when I went to the match, I stood on the top. And it's where the best buzz was, right? But this time, me mates had bought tickets for the stands, okay? Where you sit down. So I had a ticket in the stands, where normally I'd be in the Leppings lane end. And the match kicks off. We're all excited. The next minute, I'm seeing this fella climb over the fences onto the pitch. Okay, and I'm thinking, first thought in my head is, what's that lunatic doing, climbing over there, going to cause problems? And I met that lad 20 years later, right, as he escaped from the Leppings Lane end. And do you know what happened to him? The policeman threw him back in. How crazy is that? So, and then it unfolded, didn't it, what was going on? You know, this tragedy. And I wandered onto the pitch, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was looking around me. I was like I was invisible as well, because people around me, it was just chaos. And it was all kinds going on, you know. And I remember this lad punching this photographer in the face because he's taking a photograph of what's going on. I'm looking around at people getting squashed against the barriers, and I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe this is happening, you know, and as if no one could see me. That's the way I felt. I was just invisible, observing a tragedy taking place. And I walked up to the policeman on the halfway line, who was stood in a line, and I remember saying to these policemen, I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "There's people dying there, and you're stood there." I said, "What's going on?" And this copper says to me, "We've just been told to stand here, that there's trouble on, you know, in the game." And I'm like, "Well, you can see that there isn't any. I mean, what's to..." So it was an unbelievable traumatic experience for me. And, you know, to be honest, it was a long time ago, and I put most of it to bed now, so to speak. But it was one of the most difficult moments of my life, was experiencing that, okay? And then after that, I found it, you know, trying to make sense of it, trying to cope with what happened. It was difficult for me. And as a consequence of that, the relationship that I had with a woman I was seeing, who I was going to marry, broke down, I believe, due to my what do you call it, post-traumatic stress disorder? Yes. Yeah. So then what I did then was, throughout growing up, you know, I was a hedonist, right? And I didn't know what a hedonist was. So my mate said to me one day, "You're a hedonist, you aren't you?" And I'm going, "Am I? What's one of them?" "You like to enjoy yourself, don't you? You like to just..." And I went, "Yeah." Because that's what I thought that life was about as I was growing up, was enjoying myself. You know, having a girlfriend, going out drinking, partying, and taking dope. Right? So I thought, that's all right, isn't it? Right? Isn't life about enjoying yourself? So for many years I was a hedonist. And a hedonist with women as well. Okay? So anyway, I wanted to get married and settle down. So after Hillsborough and the breakdown of a relationship, I got heavy into smoking dope. Okay, knocking about with a load of guys. And part of it, I think, was trying to cope with what I experienced with Hillsborough and also the break of my relationship. It was a plaster for me. It was a crutch for me to lean on. It was a form of escapism, right? And then I ended up getting married and going to live in Ireland, in Cork, which was a fantastic experience for me. And I was there 4 years, and then my wife gave birth to a baby boy, and it was the highlight of my life at that point, at that point. But my wife couldn't settle down in rural Ireland. Oh yes, I forgot two things, Kev. Sorry. Okay, I want to go back just before I left to go to Ireland. One of the jobs I had, I've done many different jobs. One of the jobs I was working in the care sector in young people's homes. I'd run a home of an evening with youths in, right? And I'm going home one night and I had a car accident, okay? And I was going, it was wet, it was tea time, and I'm heading home. you know the way it is sometimes, you're driving along, the lights just change at a point when it's raining where you think, if I brake here, I might skid. Right, so I made a decision, no, I'm just going to put my foot down and go through, and I've timed it just right. And as I did that, a car pulled right across in front of me, and I smashed into him at about 40, 50 miles an hour, and the car spun out of control and smashed into pieces as I'm holding on to the steering wheel, and I bent the seat back, which is really difficult to do. And when the car stopped, I opened my eyes, my glasses had flown through the windscreen, my hat had gone through the windscreen. It was tea time, it was rush hour, and I opened my eyes, and within seconds there was a gang of people there, and I heard someone say, "Is he dead?" And I go, no, I'm not dead, I'm all right. So I looked around me, and the car smashed to pieces, and there's a gap where the windscreen was, and I climbed through it, and the poor fella whose car I hit, I'd lost the plot completely. He was completely okay. And I goes over to him and I goes, "Hey mate, you all right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm all right, yeah." I go, "Have you cut your hand?" And I clipped the front of his car and bent his wing up, and he tried to push it down and cut his hand. So I had to take him in the pub and get him a whiskey to calm his nerves down. And then an ambulance guy comes in and goes, "You used the driver of that car?" And I went, "Yeah." He said, "You all right?" And I went, "Yeah." Which, strangely enough, I wasn't fazed by it. But in retrospect, I shouldn't be here, to be honest. If you saw the state of the car, you'd realise, how did I get out of that? Where I was a mark on. So that was about 1999. Fast forward a few years, I'm working in Ireland. My wife's just given birth to a baby boy, and I'm working with this guy, Ollie, Cockney geezer. Now, I don't know whether you've ever sat next to people who their personality changes when they get behind the wheel of a car and they become a totally different person. Road rage, okay? That was Ollie. Right? So, we're in a van, we're towing a trailer, and Ollie's just put his foot down and he's Mr. Angry again. Next minute, the steering wheel starts shaking like mad, and we're towing a trailer. And I looked at him, and he looks at me as the steering wheel's going like that. Next thing, the van goes off the road, and then tumbles down an embankment, smashes through a load of trees, and all the equipment in the van is flying all over the place. And I'm thinking, I'm dead here. This is it. Hanging on for dear life as the thing's falling over and things around me smashing and flying all over the place. And all of a sudden it stops. And I go, "Oh, I'm still here. Oh, I've survived it." Right? So it gets out without a scratch on me. Okay? So on three occasions then, I should have been normally at the back of the goal at Leppins Lane. Okay? I could have died in Seaforth in that one, and I certainly could have died in Ireland. And I firmly believe, the reason why I'm telling you this, is because I believe that God has his hand on me. Because he knew one day I'd cotton on. All right, I'm going to tell you how I cottoned on now. Okay? So, goes back to the UK, 2004. I've got a little boy. Right. I didn't suffer any injuries from the road top accident, but I had a bad back. I seemed to twisted my back, and I was in pain. And I was the main carer for my son. Okay, and I don't know. I mean, we've got a daughter now. I don't know whether you've got any grandchildren or you remember what it was like when you're bringing up kids, but it's hard. It's hard, man. Our daughter's running around now, grabbing everything, but hang on, right? And my poor wife, I'm married again, my poor wife, she struggles at times, which is understandable because it's a demanding job being a parent. So anyway, as it happens, me and my wife, Martine, we end up separating. And my son's 2, and I've been his main carer for 2 years. And her brother, actually, the straw that broke the camel's back was a fallout between me and my wife when her brother turned up, and she upset him. And I went over to her and said, listen, you better go and make it up with your kid, you know. And she said, oh, you know, she got upset with me and then said, well, you can leave. So I did. Okay, kind of regretted it, but only half, and then it takes off. And I was homeless then for 6 months. And this is an important part in my life's paths, if you like, in the sense of a few months before my mother had died, then my dad had died, and now my marriage had died. So 3 traumas, okay? And I'm couch surfing back in Liverpool. Did I ever stay with you? I think I did, didn't I?
Probably.
Yeah, it's been in my life such a long time, my mate Ged. So I couch surf for 6 months, and I'm missing my son. And plus my ex-wife still needs support because she was studying to be a nurse. So I goes back to York, and by which time I'd been looking into doing 3 different new jobs. One of them was working in operating theatre as a kit man. Another one was being a stonemason, and another one was going back to school. So I chose to go back to school. I went to university, and I went to university to study to be a filmmaker. Okay, because I dabbled in the arts since my 20s and got into doing theatre work and drama and acting and stuff. But I thought, you know what? I'll do it properly. I'll be a proper director. I'll go and study it at uni. So I went to university, you know, with the sole dream, vision, wish to be a director. You know, make money, be creative. So it goes to uni. I'm 46 when I go. And I was just talking to my pals here about, we share certain things in common. We have a hunger for knowledge and information. That's why we're designed. And, you know, so I loved uni, absolutely loved it. And then 2 things happened. The first thing was, I did an assignment on the news, okay? And this assignment, I had to compare and contrast the news in one day, looking at as many news stations as I could across the world, and write about it, and then present it as an assignment to my professors. And the second thing that happened, I went to an international documentary film festival in Sheffield, where one of the top speakers there was a renowned guy who'd won 30 international awards for his documentaries and books and programs on corruption. His name is John Pilger, okay, who subsequently passed away a couple of years ago. But when I went to see John Pilger, it was a packed house, okay, standing room only. And I'd never heard of John Pilger. I quickly did a bit of research on before I went. And then we meet him afterwards. And he's got us signing a load of books. And because our teacher had taken us there, we were introduced to this fella. And when I understood what type of bloke he was and what type of documentaries he made, with the sole purpose of telling the truth. That's an important word, isn't it? Truth. Okay. Come back to that word, truth, in a minute. Okay, so I was amazed at this guy's stories. And he tells us, because I meet him and I goes, all right, mate, sit there. How come you're still alive? Because fellas like you usually get bumped up for doing what you do. And he says to me, well, when I was in Cambodia, the Cambodian Air Force bombed the hotel where I was staying, but it just happened to be out. And I go, wow. And I'm like, wow, fellas, I didn't think fellas like him still existed. Okay? So he inspired me to go looking into his world of corruption. Okay? So my journey, finding Christ, this is how it goes for me. Go through life, get off the hook a few times, dying, okay? Was a hedonist, okay? Had loads of failed relationships, right? Tried to drown my sorrows through partying and smoking dope, okay? And, you know, I ended up going through tragedies and ended up going to university. And then go looking into a world of corruption, okay? John Pilger was brilliant at bringing high-level MPs, senators to account for their roles in corruption, okay? Now, we all know things come out, don't they, like Jimmy Savile, okay? Like Prince Andrew, like Epstein, like the list goes on and on and on of people who get away with stuff. The Duke of Edinburgh, best mates with Jimmy Savile, right? Okay, so John Pilger would be a guy who exposed corruption. So I looked into his world, and then when I did the assignments on the news, my professor said to me, "You do realise you're being lied to and propagandised, don't you?" And I go, "Yeah, I do, and I don't like it. I knew there was something phony going on with all these people, but I get it." So then I decided to look into that world. This is where my life changed. This is where I realised that God had a plan for me, and how I was going to find it was going down that road. So I looked into secret societies, into the Illuminati, into Freemasonry, into Hollywood, into the music industry. And by the way, our kid's an exorcist priest. Forgot to mention that. Okay, so our kid, when I joined the dots after about 7 years of looking into this, my epiphany was realising that God had to exist because of all of the richest, the most powerful people in the world are all Satanists. And I'd heard hundreds, and I'm talking hundreds of personal testimonies of people who'd been in them worlds and got out and would say exactly the same thing, okay? Worship the devil and abuse kids. That was the common thread that ran through all of it. Now, when I share this with people sometimes, I forget that I've gone through the shock factor ages ago. And that what I might be saying to them, they're like, "Whoa, what are you on about, mate?" Because it's so far detached from the real world. But it's true. It's true. So in a nutshell, what happened to me was, I come to the realisation, after listening to people say, I used to be in the Illuminati. I didn't even know I was in the Illuminati, and this was my story. And I go, wow, what a story that is. And God just showed me hundreds of stories, personal stories, okay? People who were working with voodoo, okay? The supernatural world coming into play. You know, going to a meeting where blue plasma smoke will come out the walls and manifest itself in front of a woman, and go up to people and go, "What can I do for you?" Okay? So, my realisation that God existed was the fact that there had to be a God, because the devil exists and demons exist, and our kid's an exorcist priest. I mean, come on. So I go, well, God's got to exist. You can't not exist. You can't have one without the other. So I go like that, but you never forget it. And this was the moment that my life changed forever. And, excuse me. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. So, I laugh at the ceiling. It took me years of looking into stuff, because it's fascinating, this world. Absolutely fascinating. Shocking. Unbelievable. Right. Because they run everything. They run the media. They run the radio. They run Hollywood. No wonder people don't believe it, because they've got all the tools to deceive us. Okay? And I'm fuming, because it's been kept from me all my life, but I didn't know the mechanisms they had to do it, but I do now. Okay? So, when I had the epiphany, the realisation, I'm in my bedroom in York, and it's 2013, And I go like that. I know you exist now. I had the overwhelming feeling that God knew. I knew God knew I knew. Right? So, and I got a sense within me, I'd say my spirit, okay, that God's like that. All right, kid. Have you just down telling me that I am real? Have you got it? And I go like that, yeah. And then I go, do us a favour, God. Just send me proof I'm not talking to the ceiling. So God goes, obviously he did, goes, all right, yeah, sounds. I'll do that for you, lad. Next minute, over the next year, 5 men come into my life and share their supernatural stories with me. Right. And one of the first fellas is a guy, because it was our kid introduced me to some fella I know who's doing a documentary, and he's doing this road, the Camino, and he's doing a documentary, he's a filmmaker. And he'd come to see me, I want to introduce you to him. I go, yeah, all right, yeah. So I meet this fella. Used to be a drug dealer. Used to travel up and down the country, dropping off drugs, run a gym, and then go to Thailand on holiday. This is Alan's story. And in a nutshell, he says, I'm climbing this waterfall in my designer flip-flops, and I get to the top of the waterfall, and there's this Thai fella holding his hand out, and I go to grab it, and I miss it. Right? And there's a 100-foot fall all on these rocks below, and I'm falling to my death. Right? And Alan goes, I saw the look of horror on this guy's face as I'm falling, and I just thought, I'm dead. Right? And he said, next minute, he said, my life flashed in front of me, and I had this overwhelming feeling of regret. He said, not the fact that I'm going to hit the rocks and splatter to pieces and it's going to be painful. The fact that I'm never going to do what I wanted to do because I'm about to die. And I said, what did you want to do, Al? He said, I wanted to be a writer. I went, really? He went, yeah. He said, but that was more painful not doing that than hitting the rocks. I went, wow, right. I said, what happened then? He said, God spoke to me. I said, really? I said, what did he say? He said, what are you going to do? I said, that's what God said. And he went, yeah. And then I said to him, did you say anything? And he went, yeah. And then when he told me, right, get on this. So when he told me, I went, you spoke to God like that? Right? He goes, I said, what did you say? And Alan says, well, I just went like that. Well, you know what I'd do. And I'm like, you spoke to God like that, you know? And I went, yeah. So what happened then? He said, you roared at me. He came outside my head and in my ear and he went, what are you going to do? He said, I just screamed out, right! And he said, I just shouted, right. It's like he was in suspended animation. He come back into his body and he's looking at himself falling vertically, and there's just enough space between these rocks for him to fall into, and he plops into this and gets up without a broken bone in his body. Right? Walks over to his mate Kevin and goes, all right, Kev. And Kevin goes, oh, I've just seen you fall off, you're dead, I'm at the funeral, I can't go. Totally traumatised by it. Here's another, two interesting things that happened after that, after Alan's story, right? Alan goes home and starts writing, and the only thing he can write about is what he knows about, which is drug dealing, right? And he's finished the script, he's on the way to the barbers, and there's some fella crossing the zebra crossing, and it's Jimmy McGovern. Time 5, okay, gotta get off. Okay. And he stops. Do you know what Jimmy McGovern is? Yeah, Jimmy McGovern's one of Liverpool's most famous writers. Okay, won awards for it. Bumps into him at the zebra crossing, and Alan says, listen mate, I've just written the script on there. And I don't, you have a look at it? Yeah, look at it. Calls him up, come and write for me. Wins a BAFTA. With his first script. This fella, that's unbelievable, that never happens. I studied scripting narrative at university, it's a cultivated art. You don't do that instantly, he did it with his first script. So God intervenes in it. So God introduced several people into my life. Does anyone know Andrew Cannon? Know Andrew Cannon? Andrew Cannon is a guy who was, he had his own business, became an alcoholic and a cocaine addict. And one day he tried to kill himself, and he got a knife and he lashed it into his chest. Okay, and I went to see, he was one of the 5 men God put in my life. Okay, this guy's story blew my mind, and I made a film about him. Okay, and he tried to kill himself. Okay, didn't succeed, but then he was a cocaine addict, an alcoholic, and a self-harmer. And he bumped into his mate one day, who we hadn't seen for 3 months, who we thought he was dead. There's a lot of drug addicts. I've been working in the world of drug addiction for a few years now, and people just die on you because of the lifestyle. And he thought his mate had died. And he goes to shops one day, and he's at the lights, and this fellow winds the window down and goes, Andy! And he looks, and Andy's shaking because he thinks it might be a drug deal he owes money to. And he doesn't recognise him, and he shouts, Andy, it's Brendan. He goes, oh, Brendan, well, you don't look the same. I'm not the same. He said, I'm not an alcoholic anymore. I'm not a drug addict. I'm not a gambler. And I'm going to say something to you that you mightn't get, which is, I found Jesus Christ. I'm not a drug addict anymore, and God's transformed my life. And he goes, wow, mate, you look great. He said, I am great. And then the car takes off, and Andy goes, I want what he's got. And 3 days later, he got whacked by the Holy Spirit. Now, I don't know whether any of you have heard stories. I've heard loads of them, of people who have an encounter with the Holy Spirit. Okay, I was talking to a guy yesterday who just got to know another guy. God's put so many people in my life the past 15 years, and their stories are just amazing. And I'm just delighted that I can share some of them with people, because I believe that I've realised that God's blessed me with certain talents, and this is one of them, gassing to people. So I talk to people all the time. I spoke to a woman yesterday knocking plaster off a room in a house she's renovating. She gave herself to the Lord half an hour later. Praise God. And I do this. Do you know why I do this? I want to talk to people because I'm grateful. I am so, Lord, thank you so much. But people think you're mad. My family thought I was lost the plot. Because when I first realised God existed, I got so excited. I had to go round to people and go to my family and go, listen, God's real. Honest to God, God's real. God does it. And they're all going, is he all right? He's been through a few tragedies and traumas, and he's just grabbing onto something to help him with that, isn't he? You know, oh, I'm made up for you. I'm made up for honest. I'm like, you haven't come to evangelise me, have you? And oh, words got round it. Yeah, you know what you like to do. It's all right. You'll be all right, lad. Okay. So people think you're balmy, and I get it, because my first film that I ever made, it's on YouTube, called Prayer for Liverpool. Right. It's about my cousin. Right. Who'd become a born again Christian. He was a club owner. I couldn't believe he'd become a born again Christian. I didn't know what a born again Christian was. Right. And he's telling me his mother's house. I'm visiting his mother one day at Christmas Day, and he's become a born again Christian. And I'm like, wow, how did that happen? Moneybags, we call him, because he's a millionaire. And he said, well, I had everything. He told me a story how it happened to him. He got curious and then he got saved. And he said, well, you make a film for me. I said, what's that? He said, I run a prayer group in Liverpool every fortnight or every month, and I want you to promote it. And I'm like, yes, Darren, yeah, okay, I'll do that. So I make this film for him. He's really happy with it. But his mate done me edit just before I was saved. And this mate's like that, do you edit? Do you know Jesus Christ? And I go like that, Paul, I'm sound. I'm alright, mate. I'm a Catholic. Good fella. I'm alright, mate. Don't do anyone any harm. I'm sound. I don't need you to tell me about Jesus Christ. Because I'm cool. Yeah, but you know you've got to be born again. And I go, listen, mate. Do us a favour. Just leave me alone. Jeff, have a word. Okay. 7 years later, that's how long it took me from there. Right. I'm in his mother's church, sharing my testimony for the first time. And how this fella, her son, done me head. Right, and she said, he's here, and his arm goes up. And I go, what do you say to someone who's helped save your life? Because that fella went out of his way and knew that I needed to know the truth, and took the time out, even though I rebuked him to tell me the truth. And I told him to get lost and beat it. And there I am thanking him from the bottom of my heart, because it took a long time before the penny dropped. And I just want to thank him, because he kept praying for me and he kept pushing in. I just want to thank him. And that was just the start of my journey.